talking about? Hold up, wait a minute, what you talking about? Wanna be given the blame? I'm a fraud. 'Cause I'm a true psychopath. When you're lost, take your trust. That's me. That's so sick. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psycho. Woo. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trust. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Yes, I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath.
Hi, everybody. How are you? It's Sunday. We had the clocks turned back and got an extra hour of sleep. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope your weekend was great and you're refreshed and have a great work week tomorrow. It's good to see you guys. Let me say hi. See who else here. Who do we have? Let's see. Hey, Music City Mom 2, Karen D, Coco, Shani, or Shani, Tiffany, Metamom Christy, Skyflash Media. Good to see you guys. Kara, Vicky, Demi, Katie2, MK Lean. Good to see you. K Braze. Good to see you guys. Lisa, hello. Hi, Sam. How are you? Gamer Mom, Cement Shoes. Oh, you guys coming out. I appreciate it so much. Nana Banana, Rachel's rocking. Excuse me. Blue, Amelia Sparkles. Hey, cool gamer. Good to see you. Hey, Linda. Excuse me, Law Nerd Amber, Cece Orleans. Good to see you. Welcome in. Hey, Kathy, Team Psych Ward. Hey, Brandy, Adrian. Oh, hi, Holden. Hi, Bodine. Hey, Jessie. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, S. Newell. Good to see you. Welcome in. I'm glad to have everybody here. Hey, Judy. Hi, Tony. Hey, babe. All right. So tonight, what I thought we would do is like skim through it's not the most important testimony, obviously. Well, Charlie's is important, but just the players in it, not so much like law enforcement, which their testimony is important. The neighbor's testimony was important, but I kind of want to go over who I think the jury is going to have issues with, right? Like, for example, Wendy's testimony. Okay. Hey, Allie, good to see you, babe. And how did she do on the stand? And what is the jury? Because I want to hear what you guys think. Because let's be honest, granted, we know more information, obviously, than what the jury knows. Okay. That's just a given. But I think we can, still give a very unbiased opinion just based on the test. Hold on a second. My lamp is bent. Just based on the testimony, we can be unbiased and just take the testimony as it's given. Because I'm thinking that the jury is going to, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be a quick verdict, but I've been I've been wrong before. I thought that Murdoch was going to take a lot longer than it did. And so, I've been wrong before, so who knows? I'll be wrong again. Oh shit, it's Sherry. Hey, good to see you. I know you don't put the whole thing in there, but I like to say it because I know what you mean. Hey, welcome, Vicky. Thank you for joining memberships. Welcome to the Kookaloos. Then we're okay. Yes, Jacqueline. Then we got to talk about the other troublesome testimony, right? Which will be Katie Magbanua or Catherine, which, but everybody calls her Katie. So I'm going to call her Katie too. And I'm just going to pretend like, I'm familiar. Anywho, her testimony is problematic. She has changed her story, and that's just the way that it is. She decided, after she got life in prison that, she was going to work with the state. Listen, I don't judge. You got to do what you got to do. But the problem is, the problem is with, and I saw this. I've seen this. I think you've said this before, and I want to talk to you about this. So I'm going to highlight it really quickly. Highlight, and then I'm going to finish what I'm saying, so I remember. Anyway, sorry, I'm a little distracted, you guys. The last bird flew the nest. My youngest son moved out today, and I'm excited for him. But it's still, your kids, and so now I'm literally completely a total empty nester, and I'm happy and sad at the same time. So being here with you guys is gonna, I think that will be helpful. So anyway, Magbanua, she changed her story, right? She has a completely, she went from I didn't know anything. She went from new phone, who dis, to I know all the things and I'm about to tell all the things. I'm finna spill the beans, so please sit down and listen, right? And the problem with that is when you have somebody who's on the stand who admits that they are a liar, then their credibility is called into question, because whether they're lying then or whether they're lying now, they're a liar. So it doesn't really matter. And it's a problem. So then we have the one person in this trial who testified that was just a regular, aside from the neighbor, that was just a regular Joe, right? Was Luis Rivera. And I got to say, you guys, I watched his testimony, and frankly, I found him to be quite credible. Of all the people that, got up on that stand, I believed him more than I believed anybody else. And then we're going to get into Charlie, because that testimony, I have to say, I was I have two grandbabies too, Jacqueline, and I have three because I have a bonus grandbaby, but I have three grandbabies. And I am getting, I'm getting into it. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna get through. This will pass. And I'm going into a new hey Cheryl, I'm getting into, and Roseanne, I am getting into a new era or whatever. I'm opening a new chapter, however you want to say it. I don't know. There's like 11 billion cliches, whatever. But we're moving forward, right? New doors are opening. Okay. And then we have Charlie. Now, I actually think, as far as testimony goes of a defendant testifying in their own defense, I thought Charlie was prepped incredibly well by his attorney. And everybody does well on cross-examination, as far as the questions go, right? Because, your lawyer has talked to you, gone over it, blah, 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 right? However, there's prepping, and then there is, what's the word? And I know that he's affable. He has some natural charm to him a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And he didn't seem incredibly tense or stressed, like he was comfortable up on the stand. And so that will play some extent, I think that plays to the jury. Then we get to the cross examination, and I got to say, I actually think that he kind of held up under the cross examination. I could see that she was picking and needling, which is exactly what she should do. But then she somewhat backed off. And I felt like there were a few times that she could have really gone in. And to be truthful, she looked far more frustrated than he did. And that's, I don't know how that is going to play to the jury. I don't know. I'm very curious about that. Listen, I think his story is absolute trash. I don't believe a word that came out of his mouth. I mean, aside from his name and the way he feels about his mom and his nephews and stuff and his son and all that. Yeah, I believe that. And I think he does love his sister. But, oh, thank you, Vicky. Welcome to the Kookaloos. I appreciate that. Um, so yeah, I, um, I don't believe his story, but then again, I've heard much more than what the jury has heard. And so when I think about how is the jury going to perceive it, it's a little bit different, because I don't believe it, right? But again, like I said, if I were to solely base my opinion only on what happened in the trial and in the courtroom, like the jury is supposed to, you guys, I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll have to see. And I will say this. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, the closing arguments. I think will be good. I'm looking forward to hearing those. So hold on. Why did it pull up? Hold on a second. Because I had this pulled. Oh, it's this one I want to use. Okay. So we're going to start with Wendi. Okay. Then we're going to go to Katherine Magbanua. Then we'll do Luis. Then we'll do Charlie. I would really like to sort of just skip around a little bit with Wendi, Katherine, and Luis, but I want to really focus in on Charlie's. And we'll do a little bit of the Hi Crime Curious. We'll do a little bit of the of his direct examination, but what I really want to go in on is the cross examination. Okay, so let me share the screen. Also, and you give me just a second. I have some new links in the membership in the Nightbot that I want to show you guys. What am I doing here? Okay. All right. So we'll just kind of skip around through Wendi because there's a lot. There's part of her that I mean, there's part of me that just gets straight annoyed. I don't really have a lot of patience for that doe-eyed look that she gives, where she blinks a lot and looks like she's really sweet and everything, because I just don't buy it. But that's just me. Anyway, okay. So here are some links right quick. Here is a link to memberships if you'd like to join. I've got some cool content coming out. I'm excited to share with you guys. Some of it will be members only, because I really do need to start doing that. I've got to thank my I've got to show my gratitude for the members. You guys have supported me, and I can't thank you enough. Let's see. Like, a bit helpful if I spelt it correctly. Jen, come on, get your life right. All right. And this is the new one. I have added Crime Curious. Hold on, if I could spell it right. To the Nightbot. Woo-hoo! Hey, Thug Nasty. I don't have a smoke alarm in here. So if You're hearing a beep. It ain't from me, or unless it's in the courtroom. Was there a beep in the courtroom? Am I missing the joke? You guys have to just excuse me tonight. I'm just a little bit off. Hey, hippie chick, but I will. I'll be all right. Okay. Okay. All right. You made it to the big time, crime curious. You're in the night bot. um. Okay. All right. Are we ready? Let's see. Turn the closed captions on. She's gonna, okay. Oh, let's start here because look at Charlie. Man, that's a face, ain't it? Wow.
Did you meet?
We met in Washington, D.C. He was working there and I was looking into a summer job.
Thank you so much, MK. I appreciate that so much. Let's just skip ahead a little bit. Let's get to right about here. Let's see what she says right here. All right.
You may not be able to do this, but states 59, I've got phone numbers attributed to your family members. Obviously, you don't know the other people. Are those phone numbers accurate, if you know, for the time
Yes.
frame around the murder?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then you are also familiar with the wiretap that was conducted in this case?
Yes.
And did I provide you a disc labeled disc 107 and ask you to review some calls and see if you could authenticate the voices on those calls?
Yes.
All right. And for that, I made you a little spreadsheet, which I've marked as 61. And were you able to initial by each call indicating that the highlighted names are the voices of the people they purport to be?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, I ask to move to evidence state 61.
Any objection?
No objection.
State 61 is admitted.
All right. And if we can shift back to, we talked about your divorce being final. Once the divorce was final, weren't there still a lot of filings that went back and forth between both you and Dan Markel?
Yes and no. The divorce was final. We had a final settlement agreement. The agreement was I take my name off the title to the house. He pays me half the value to the house. So for within the first week, I went and took my name off the title to the house and I waited until October when he was supposed to get back to me. He never paid me the money. And so I called and I asked what happened. That was the deal. And he said, I have compelling reasons. I'm not going to pay you. And so I made one filing, a motion to enforce the settlement agreement because he didn't do it.
Okay. One thing I want to talk about right quick is, hey, Lady Lysandra, thank you. Welcome to the Kookaloos. Thank you so much. One thing I want to point out here is that, and I don't know, two things. One, I want to hear more from you, Lisa, about this juror who seems to be pro Charlie. I'm very curious where that came from. And two, I don't appreciate my phone changing well to wheel when I was talking to Thug Nasty that I actually think I added a couple of extra A's that weren't there or shouldn't be there. So my apologies. And then I want to talk about what she's doing on the stand. One thing about Wendi that I have to point out is the fact that when somebody is familiar with the courts. And because while the prosecutor is standing directly in front of her, she will frequently look at the jury. And that is something that, hey, Mrs. M, that is something that engages the jury. And it's actually, it just shows that she's quite comfortable testifying on the stand, that she knows what she's doing in a courtroom. And I'm not a fan of it coming. It depends on who's doing it, right? With her, it feels to me like it's manipulation is what she's doing by engaging the jury. If you think about the circumstances under which she's testifying, okay, she is testifying at a trial against her brother, okay, who has been accused of being behind a murder for hire plot to murder her ex-husband, and it doesn't, and the father of her children. It doesn't really matter what Wendi feels about Dan. At the end of the day, you know, that is her children's father. And there is, people can say whatever and have different opinions about, and as far as people who knew Dan and knew about Wendi and Dan's relationship, and whether it was a good one or a bad one, or it was a contentious divorce or all the things, right? But at the end of the day, that none of that really matters, because that's those children's father, and your brother was part of a scheme to take him away from your kids. That alone is, if you're not part of it, right, that's thrown off. And the fact that she's able to testify the way that she is, I don't know another way to say it. It's icky. There's something really highly manipulative about the way that she looks over and engages the jury under these circumstances. If she were just, she's a lawyer herself. She does, immigration law, I think. And I am not a lawyer at all. No. I just watched a ton of trials and done a lot of Googling to understand it. Exactly right, Lucy. They would not have known Dan's schedule without her. And again, I have to point out that the state refers to her as an unindicted co-conspirator, and that is huge. There is something quite off about it, and I'm not a fan of it at all. I just don't like that she does this. I think that under the circumstances, it's inappropriate for why she's there, in my opinion, for her to be engaging the jury. She should be the most reluctant to be up here. This would be between a rock and a hard place for most people. Even if you had nothing to do with it, right? You knew nothing. The level of betrayal would be immense. And then on top of it, the confliction that you have, because that is your brother, and they, by all accounts, were a pretty close family. So it's just weird to me. I don't know. Okay, we're not supposed to be listening to me. We're supposed to listen to her. So here we go.
Right. So you believe that he owed you money pursuant to the settlement agreement.
Yes.
He was in violation of the settlement agreement.
Yes.
And he was of the belief that you had withheld some financial things from your affidavit, and maybe he didn't owe you the money that you had previously agreed on because you had not been honest in the initial disclosures, right?
He accused my attorney of having unclean hands and committing a crime.
Yeah, and assisting you in withholding this money from the
Correct.
disclosures. Okay. All right, so I want to ask you about the motion to enforce marital settlement agreement and hold Dan Markell in contempt of court. That was filed, you may need to refresh your memory, October 31st, 2013. Give you the exhibit 56 and have you take a look at, this is going to be on 338. All right, could you just read the title, the caption of that filing?
Motion to enforce marital settlement agreement and to show cause why the former husband should not be held in contempt of court.
What does it mean to be held in contempt of court?
It means not to be doing what the court has asked you to do.
What can happen to you if you're held in contempt of court?
I don't know, really.
Could you be jailed?
Okay, I also find this problematic because she is an attorney, and this is even I know what can. I'm not an attorney, but even I know what can happen if you're found in contempt of court. I mean, you know, I wouldn't say I don't know. I would say, well, geez, it would be up to the judge, but some things would be, you know, jail, fines, etc. Right? So I don't know. I just this is kind of boring. Let's skip ahead a little bit and see what else she has to say. I will say this. You can tell that she's not testifying for the state because she wants to. First and foremost, I have to make sure I say that she's testifying because she's been subpoenaed to testify. And also she knows that anything that the way that the agreement between Wendi and the state is that nothing that Wendi says in the courtroom can be used against her later to either they can't use it as evidence to indict, and then should she be charged, they can't use it as evidence to charge her or indict her, and should she be indicted, they can't use it as evidence at a trial. But I don't think the state would go into an agreement like that if they didn't have other things. And I think it's a matter of time before Wendi Adelson is charged. I do think so. But I think it's important because you'll notice that throughout the testimony, the prosecutor throws a lot of shade at her, and it kind of makes me giggle because it's funny to me the level of shade that she gives. Let me get over to her cross-examination, because that's where the meat and the potatoes really are. So let me go over here really quick and we'll see her cross-examination. I just had it. Give me a second, you guys. I'm sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. What do you guys think of Wendi Adelson's testimony? Do you think that how do you think the jury is going to rate her? Do you think she did well? Do you think that did she creep you guys out? She creeps me out. I don't even know what the deal is with that. And that's not a very super professional opinion or whatever. It's not, but it just creeps me out. Why can't where was it? I just had it. Let me see if I click it, it'll come up in the suggestions. Here it is. All right, now we're going to watch a little bit of the cross-examination. And I do want to remind everybody that, of course, Charlie Adelson is presumed innocent. The jury has not been given, the case has not been turned over to the jury, but for the purposes of this, not just for the purposes of this discussion, I'm not seated on the jury, so I don't actually have to give him the presumption of innocence. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's guilty of anything. I'm not saying, but I can give my opinion on the evidence that's been presented thus far, and I can tell you that I don't believe his story. That's what I can say. But he does have the presumption of innocence. Everyone does. That's his rights. All right, here we go. Listen, I'm going to let this part play for a little bit because I got to let the dog out every night at right about this time. Okay. I'll be right back. Give me 5 minutes. Okay.
Your parents and Charlie were quite excited to come watch you in Tallahassee at this event in August.
Yes.
Do you recall your brother saying he couldn't wait to book a ticket, that it was fucking awesome?
Yeah, he was very excited.
Do you recall discussing with Professor Markel who would have custody of the boys during various trips in August and September of 2014?
Yes,
Do you recall having those discussions in July of 2014?
that would make sense. Yeah.
Do you recall scheduling a whole host of meetings after July 18th, 2014?
Yes.
Let me be more precise. Before July 18, 2014, do you recall scheduling a bunch of meetings that were to occur after July 18, 2014 in Tallahassee?
Yes.
Do you recall making plans with a friend moving to Tallahassee for July 25th, 2014?
I don't.
Let me see if I can refresh your memory. Do you know an individual named Tahira Lee?
I do.
May I approach your Honor with Defense Exhibit 15? And I would direct you to the email on June 17th, 2014, which I think is the fourth email on the first page, and see if that refreshes your memory. But feel free to look at the whole document.
I see it, but you were asking if they were moving to Tallahassee on the 25th, or if I.
No.
No.
Read to yourself, Ms. Adelson, don't read aloud.
Okay, sorry.
I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
Do you recall making plans with her where you said you would make plans with her after August 25th, 2014, because your family was coming to town?
Yes.
And that happened, that correspondence was in late June of 2014?
Yes.
Do you recall in June, you can put that aside now. Do you recall in June of 2014, late June of 2014, expressing interest in joining the board of a Tallahassee-based child advocacy nonprofit called American Children's Campaign?
I do.
That was in Tallahassee, right?
Mhm.
Do you recall scheduling a meeting for July 23rd, 2014, with a Professor Van Dern with the FSU College of Medicine?
So I don't, but I ran a medical legal partnership. So I would have been setting up meetings with the medical school, with the law school, with the social work school. So that would have been normal, but I don't remember it specifically.
May I approach, Your Honor? Does this refresh your recollection that you were scheduling a meeting with Professor Van Dern for July 23rd of 2014?
Yes.
Do you recall you can put that aside.
Okay.
Do you recall scheduling a meeting with your divorce lawyer to meet any time of the week of July 21, 2014?
Again, I don't remember specifically, but it sounds like it would have been made sense for the time.
Do you know an individual named Cindy Jean?
I do.
Do you remember emailing her and asking her if the kids were available to go swimming at the pool on July 19th to 20th?
I don't remember, but it sounds like something I would have asked.
May I approach, Your Honor, with Defense Exhibit 20 for identification purposes only?
You may.
Does this refresh your memory about trying to set up that play date for July 20th, or July 19th with Miss Jean?
Yes.
You can put that aside. Do you recall that your mom planned to visit Tallahassee in November of 2014?
I don't remember that.
I'm showing, may I approach Your Honor with Defense Exhibit 21 for identification purposes only?
You may.
Please take a look at this.
Yes.
Does this refresh your memory that your parents planned on being in Tallahassee on November 17th? Does that
Yes.
refresh your memory?
Mhm.
You can put that aside. Do you recall asking your parents to come to Tallahassee on August 1, 2014 for a birthday party with Ben, for Ben?
I don't remember doing that, but that sounds, it's close in time to his birthday.
May I approach Your Honor with Defense Exhibit 22?
You may.
Okay, I just have to pause for commentary because I'm a little confused about where he's going with this line of questioning, and I kind of want to see where he's going, but also I'm kind of annoyed by that I don't understand where he's going, if that makes sense, because it's not really adding up a whole lot to me. So I'm going to skip forward just a little bit, because usually and you're going to have to spill the tea for us about who winked at her, because we all missed it, unless you want me to go back and hold on. Unless you want me to go back and play it for you or look for it. All right, let's see what's happening at this moment.
Invitation. It says, help the bride and groom stock the bar for their wedding and bring a bottle of Bullet bourbon. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You can put that aside. Now, you decided to go to ABC Liquors on Bedden Road to look for the bourbon, right?
He did.
You're not a big drinker, is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Okay, so what I'll do is this is the part we want to hear, because this is about her route on the way to the liquor store that's like way out of the effing way, and God only knows what, whatever. But everybody has their theories about why she drove there and all that stuff. But I will, once we hear about this part, then I'll go back to the other video where she walks in, and I'll play it in slow motion so we can see what you're talking about.
You went to that store because you were familiar with it?
I'd seen it close to my house, so
Close to your old house?
close to my old house.
There could have been liquor stores that were closer to your current house?
Sure.
Now, when you drove to ABC Liquor, you tried to go through Trescott. Is
I
that
did.
fair to say?
It was blocked.
There are other ways to go to ABC Liquor, right? You could have gone down other roads.
I don't have the best sense of direction, so when I find a route, I just kind of keep using that route. I don't look for something else.
Okay, even though there's GPS. Okay.
You got to Mosaic at around 1 p.m.
That sounds right.
and your lunch was interrupted by Investigator Isom, who told you that something had happened.
That's right.
You went with him voluntarily to speak
did.
with him? You let police search your car?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you guys, I know some of you are, but I see new faces in here, so I'm not sure if you guys are the new faces I see, but I'm a huge fan of the behavior panel, okay? And I noticed that from when we started out, questions, they were sort of easy questions, right? And as we're progressing, but as we get to this specific part, and this is a big part, when she's talking about, or when she's being asked about the drive to Trescott, or and to ABC Liquor, which she took a route that there was really no reason for her to take that route. There were easier, quicker routes. This is a route that took her directly by her ex-husband's house, all the things, right? Especially on that specific day. Like she had a legitimate reason to be going to the liquor store. Okay. She had there was a bridal shower, stock at the bar. I'm not judging her for that, but, I think it's interesting that when this part of the testimony starts, her blink rate, and if you're a fan of the behavior panel, her blink rate significantly increases about right now. Sorry, stumbling around in my words a little bit.
You were interviewed with the investigator from approximately 2:45 p.m. until 7:50 p.m.
Yes.
He told you that your ex-husband had been shot and was unlikely to survive, right?
Yes.
You were in shock.
Yes.
You were pretty open with police, telling them a lot of things, right?
They kept telling me they needed my help, and so I kept trying to help.
Now, you remember on direct, Ms. Kappelman asked you about this interview.
Yes.
And she asked you about all the people you mentioned during the interview, including Charlie.
Yes.
And you said I was just wheeling off names, right?
Yes.
In fact, isn't the first person in the interview that you mentioned was yourself?
Yes.
You said that you would understand if you were viewed as the prime suspect, right?
Yes.
Before you mentioned anyone else, you mentioned yourself.
Yes.
You told them about the motion to relocate.
I did.
You told them about the fight you had with Professor Markel that very morning about some swimming for the boys.
Yes.
You were spitting out a lot of ideas.
I was.
And you agreed to let the police search your phone.
Yes.
You agreed to let the police search your car.
Yes.
That's where they found that picture that I wasn't able to admit of the invitation to the Bull of Bourbon, right?
Yeah.
You agreed to be fingerprinted.
Yes.
You agreed to be checked for gunshot residue.
Yes.
You gave them your computer to be searched.
I did.
Towards the end of your interview, you asked the police officer if you could call your parents, right?
I did.
And the police allowed you to do that.
Yes.
And you called your mother's cell phone sometime around 7:04 p.m.
Yes.
And you spoke to your mom. I don't know if you remember, but do you remember your dad being in the shower because they were going out to dinner?
I don't remember.
Your mom didn't answer actually the first call, and you called back a couple minutes later and she answered. Do you recall that?
I don't.
And when you called your mom, she was surprised.
Yes.
And you asked her to call Charlie and tell him what happened, right?
Yes.
Look, he's blinking a lot too.
You didn't speak with Charlie that day, right?
I don't think so.
On July 19th, the next day, you spoke to Charlie at 10:50 in the morning. Is that, you won't know the exact time, but do you recall speaking with him in the morning?
I honestly don't.
Do you recall letting him know that Professor Markel had passed away in the early morning?
I don't remember the conversation.
What are you guys make of that while I prepare the next video for us to watch? What do you guys make of her lapses in memory? Because I'm always curious about that. I don't know. There's something that's, I don't know, kind of weird about, I don't know, not weird. That's not the right word. Off about that for me. I feel like, I guess the memory is okay. When I got the call from my sister that my mom passed away, I can remember every detail of that all these years later. And she died in 2015. And I can remember exactly where I was. I can remember what I was doing. I find it odd that she doesn't remember calling her brother. Because I remember when my sister called me, I was at the store and I was dropping off a prescription. And she told me what was going on. And then she had to call me back because we didn't, we weren't, my sister was in a different state and I was back in Texas but I was still like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours away from where my mom was. And I remember she called me on three-way because the cops had called her from the apartment because they had questions. And so, yeah, I remember all of it. I remember telling my kids. I remember telling my husband. I just think it's odd that she doesn't remember so much about that. Like, I don't know, maybe that's one of those things where you either remember everything or you remember nothing. I don't know. But we're going to watch Katherine Magbanua now. Yeah, see, you guys remember. That's kind of what I feel like she would remember. Yeah, she's a lying liar face who tells lies for sure. But I just find that so odd that she's so evasive and vague about, I'm always intrigued by people and their memories and all of that stuff. It always interests me. Like what they choose to remember, what is significant to people when they're telling the truth and when you know that they're being less than honest. Okay. All right. So now we're going to watch Katherine Magbanua and see what she has to say about everything. All right, here we go.
The witness may be seated. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
You may take your seat. Please loudly and clearly.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, generous
Say your
Bitcoin
name and
billionaire.
Spell your name.
Katherine Magbanua, Katherine Magbanua.
I see that you're in jail clothes. Are you currently in custody?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you in custody for?
The murder.
Are you doing a sentence for murder?
Yes, ma'am.
You were convicted of murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that the murder of Dan Markell?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a trial in your case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you testify?
Yes, ma'am.
You testified on your own behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And when you testified, were you truthful with the jury?
No, ma'am. I was not.
Did you take the same oath that you just took today in your own trial?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your defense when you were tried?
That I had nothing to do with it.
All right. That we got it right in reference to Charlie Adelson and we got it right in reference to the killers,
Yes,
but you
ma'am.
weren't in the middle.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's not entirely true either, Katie. That was not your defense. Your defense was that you didn't know what they were doing at all. You had no idea what was going on. That was what your defense was. Stop playing with these people.
Was
Sorry.
that true?
No, ma'am. It was not.
Were you in the middle?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And didn't you also testify in the trial in which Sigfredo Garcia was convicted of murder?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And what was his defense?
That he had nothing to do with it.
That we got it right in reference to Charlie Adelson and we got it right in reference to the killers, but he had nothing to do with it,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Overruled, Ms. Calvin, make sure you use up any questions.
And was that defense truthful?
No, ma'am, it was not.
So Sigfredo Garcia was involved.
Yes, ma'am, he was.
So why tell the truth now?
I believe that the truth needed to come out now so that the family can get some type of closure.
Why didn't the truth need to come out last year or the year before or the year before that?
I was trying to defend myself.
You were trying to get off.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you think you'd be successful in your trial with that defense?
I thought so.
Has anyone promised you anything for your testimony here today?
No, ma'am.
Weren't you originally offered immunity for cooperation in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
But you didn't take us up on that
No, ma'am, I didn't.
because you thought you could get off completely.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
And now you're doing a life sentence.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Did Charlie Adelson threaten to harm you if you told the truth?
No, ma'am, he didn't threaten me.
Did anybody threaten you to keep your silence?
No, ma'am.
Did anybody promise you anything if you remained silent all these years?
I wasn't promised anything, but I wasn't promised anything.
Go ahead, finish your thought. You weren't promised anything, but what?
I thought everything was going to be okay.
You thought you'd be acquitted.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is something I'm quite curious about, okay? Because it came out right after the trial. See, her and Sigfredo were tried together originally, okay? And the way that it went for her was it was a 10-2 vote of guilty. 10 people on the jury thought that she was guilty and 2 people thought that she was not guilty. This is the part that has never made sense to me about why Katie did what she did. Why roll the dice on a whole new trial? Because the defense was essentially the same at both trials, right? So why take the chance? Why not take some type of a deal? That's why I'm so curious at why she did what she did. Let's see what you guys. Yes, the ma'ams are on my nerves as well. But that's what I never understood is when you know how the jury voted and it wasn't like split down the middle, even, then I would think, okay, I can sort of understand why you might roll the dice and take your chances, right? That I kind of get behind that a little bit, but when it's 10-2, there's no way. There's just no way I would take a deal. I'm sorry. I would not. That's some chances. All right, here we go.
All right. So did you know Dan Markel?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you have any personal beef with him?
No, ma'am, I did not.
What was your motivation for becoming a part of this murder plot?
Financially.
Not as a favor to Charlie Adelson?
Objection, Your Honor. Meeting the objection.
I'll rephrase it, Your Honor. Was it a favor to Charlie Adelson?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay, but your primary motivation was not favor to Charlie Adelson?
Oh, yes, ma'am, it was. And financially.
All right, because you were going to get paid for your
Yes.
part?
Yes,
How
ma'am.
much?
Yes, Kathy, she was offered immunity because, okay, so Florida has the same laws as most states, okay? And you can be charged if they're in a conspiracy to commit murder. you can be charged exactly the same as the principal, meaning anybody that participated on any level of a murder conspiracy can receive the same charges as the person who actually did the killing. So she was offered immunity to roll. They wanted the money behind it. They wanted the people who did all the things that actually killed Dan, but they wanted the Adelsons. They wanted the money behind who paid to have this carried out. That's who they wanted. And because she was the intermediary between both sides, they were trying to get her to roll and say what, roll on everybody and just blow up the conspiracy, right? Tell everybody's role. And she wouldn't do it. And so she ended up with life without the possibility of parole. Now, Luis Rivera, he made out big time because for this crime, he only got 19 years, and he gets to serve it concurrently with the federal charges that he's in trouble for. So, I mean, they could have been like really, harsh with him and made it be consecutive, but they didn't. I'm flabbergasted that she walked away from immunity. All right, here we go.
How much did you get paid?
I don't know the exact amount.
What was your relationship to Charlie Adelson?
He was my ex-boyfriend.
When did you meet him?
I believe that was in 2013.
Do you know what month?
Has to be around September.
All right, I'm going to skip forward a little bit to the cross-examination because that's the part I always like to watch. But again, she's a problematic witness for the state because she got right up there, and for the prosecution's part, they had to get it out of the way, right? They had to ask her, okay, well, why are you telling the truth now? It's better for it to come out the way that it did than on cross, obviously. So that's the very first question that she asked, which was important to get out of the way. But there's something, the part about Katie Magbanua that I don't know. She also doesn't seem genuine. To be honest with you, I don't believe her that she's saying because the truth needed to come out so the family could have closure. No, I don't think so, Katie. I don't believe that part. All right, here we go. Let's see what's happening right here at this mark. Oh, he's quite animated. So let's see.
All by himself.
No, sir.
You never were on a recording of
Never
that
said
fact.
that.
Your plan at your second trial wasn't to have Sigfredo Garcia testify on your behalf.
Sir.
Are you aware that your lawyer opened up on that plan
No,
in
sir,
her
I'm not
opening?
aware. No.
Well, did you sit through the trial?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you sit through the trial when she said to the jury, you're going to hear from Sigfredo Garcia, who's going to say that the murder was between him and Charlie Adelson, and that you're just a victim of having bad taste in men?
He never came up.
He refused to come and testify, right?
I don't know if he refused. He was never called.
Are you aware that you and your lawyer subpoenaed him to come down to Leon County to testify on your behalf?
He was subpoenaed, but he just never showed up.
And he didn't
He
show
never
up?
took the stand.
Right. He was subpoenaed by you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you got on the phone with him. You were caught because you're not supposed to talk to each other, right?
Yes, sir.
But you guys talk to each other because what you do is you call his mom, right?
Yes, sir.
And he calls his mom. Isn't that what you all do?
At that time, yes, sir.
Yeah, you call each other so that you could talk to each other through the mom. And during one of those calls, you asked him to come testify on your behalf. Isn't that what you did?
No, I did not ask him.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to some other lies.
He does, MK. You nailed it.
During your first trial,
Hang on
you were
just a
asked.
second. because I want to, okay. So I found the testimony credible, believable. Him as a human being, would I trust him? No. The way that I feel about Luis is that his story has not changed. Nothing has been added, nothing has been taken away. Every time he's testified the exact same way, and that's the testimony I found credible. Not like him as like a person, I would not leave I wouldn't leave Alice and Mac, the cats, I wouldn't let him babysit them or cat sit them, as it were. I feel like, yeah, as a human being, that's one thing, but what he said on the stand, I believed.
You didn't ask Mr. Garcia to help this lady get her kids back in Tallahassee. Answer, no, ma'am. You didn't solicit him to commit a murder of Dan Markel. Answer, no, ma'am. Do you recall those questions and answers?
Yes, sir.
You were asked, well, back then, did you know someone by the name of Dan Markel? Answer, no, ma'am. In 2014, you learned that Wendi Adelson's divorce was already finalized, right? I learned that. I didn't know it before. Do you remember those words? Those were lies, right?
Yes, I lied in my trials to save myself.
We'll keep going. You lied when you said that Charlie told you that Professor Markel had been in an accident, right?
I lied that. Say it again, sir.
Well, I'll ask you the questions. Do you remember having a conversation with Charlie Adelson about his brother-in-law being in an accident? Does that sound familiar to you? It sounds familiar. Yeah, that was a lie, right?
No, that's what Charlie said.
He told you that he was in an accident. He'd tell you that there was a murder?
No, he told me he was in an accident.
So you didn't know about the murder of Dan Markel on July 18th. Is that what you're telling this jury?
No, not at that time.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Back the milk truck up. You're telling me that you got up on this stand today, well, when this happened, right? And you were the intermediary. You set up, you were the go-between between Charlie, who was the money, and Sigfredo, who was the muscle. And the day that Dan Markel died, it didn't click that it was you thought it was, you believed. Why would, and that's the other thing. If they were all in it together, right? Charlie and Katie. See, now I'm getting all feisty all over again over this. Here it is. If you were in cahoots, right? You were cahooters. How come it is that, why would Charlie lie and say that Dan was in an accident if you were setting up a hit? If you were the middle person? That makes no sense either. I'm sorry. I'm going to get my rage under control, but I'm annoyed because these are stupid lies.
When did you find out about the murder of Dan Markel?
It was later on.
Oh, really? So the money that you brought to the guys that Miss Kappelman brought up on opening, the money brought up to the guys on July 19th, it was because Dan Markel was in an accident?
I didn't know that was Dan Markel. Like, I didn't know his name.
Oh.
But there was a murder that happened, yes.
What?
At the March 11th dinner that you had with Mr. Lacoste at Yardbird, Dan Markel's name wasn't mentioned?
No, sir.
Would it surprise you that Mr. Lacoste has testified to the opposite of that?
No, I haven't seen his testimony.
Linda. Why come?
At your first trial, you were asked, did Charlie mention anything to you about a murder out of Tallahassee? So now it's not Dan Markel. It's just a murder out of Tallahassee. And your answer was, no, ma'am. Question, did he mention anything about his ex-brother-in-law being murdered? Answer, no, ma'am. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, sir.
And those were lies, right?
Yes, I told you I lied. I lied in my trials to save myself.
I understand. Please let me keep going through them. There's a lot of them, so we'll take our time.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the shade of it all.
Now, you said you never saw any cash at Charlie's place. Do you recall that at trial?
He had cash, but I didn't know how much he had. I know he keeps cash in his safe.
But I thought you just testified moments ago
She did.
that you never saw cash at his place. He didn't keep cash at his place. That supposedly his parents had to bring the cash. Isn't that what you just told this jury about 18 minutes ago?
An abundance of cash.
What?
Have you seen his safe?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen it open?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't he keep a lot of cash that he collects on the top of his safe?
I mean, I'm not like looking in it, but every single time we used to go out, he used to grab some money from the safe and then take it with him.
Repeatedly during both trials, you said you worked at the Adelson Institute. You never worked at the Adelson Institute,
No,
right?
sir, I did not.
Now we're going to hear about a Lexus.
Yes, sir.
You said you paid for that Lexus. You never paid for that Lexus. Is that
I
the case?
paid Charlie cash for that Lexus.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I think the state might disagree. Has the state disagreed with you on that point?
About me paying him cash? Yes, because there was nothing that was coming out of my account, but I paid him cash.
Well, where'd you get the
I
cash?
had the cash on me.
From where?
During the trial, first trial, you were asked, do you know why it is that Charlie chose you out of all of his ex-girlfriends to call? I don't know why he called me. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, sir.
That was a lie, right?
I told you I lied in my
Okay.
first and
Okay.
second
I
trial
knew
to
what you
save
meant, babe.
myself.
Thank
Well,
you,
let's get to the
Lisa.
second
Thank
trial.
you.
Just like you're lying here to save yourself, right?
I'm
Yes.
not saving myself. I'm telling the truth this time.
Right, because
Oh.
now all of a sudden, after 8 years, you have developed a conscience. I think that's what you told the jury.
No, it's because the father of my children was on death penalty at that time on my first trial. So I couldn't give up. If it was just Charlie, like I said from the trial, go ahead and arrest him. Nobody ever did.
He didn't get the death penalty after the first trial, and he was convicted, right?
Yes, sir.
And by the time of his second trial, you had no reason to protect him anymore. He was done.
No, sir. He was under appeal.
Okay, just like you're under appeal now.
Yes, sir.
So what you said to this jury about 20 minutes ago is you said to this jury, I'm here today to tell the truth, and I want to get your exact words. Because I want to do the right thing.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it because you want to go home? And that's the only way that you could ever go home is to help them. That's the only way you can go home by not being dead.
I was not promised anything. I'm doing this solely on myself. Clearly, you don't even see my attorneys in this room.
Let's talk about the second trial. Again, you lied when you testified that you didn't know anything about or were involved in the murder of Professor Markell, right?
Yes, sir. I told you I lied in my first and second trial to save myself.
Ma'am, we've heard it. If you could just answer the questions. Did
Yes,
you
sir.
lie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Listen, she's annoying to me too, but I think oh, this is a good question. Michelle Bruno wants to know, question, how the police found out Wendi Adelson drove to the crime scene. Now, if I remember correctly, she admitted to it in her police interrogation. Okay, look at the gallery right now. All right. You're going to have to be more specific. Oh, I see. Look at you, they're not buying it either. But isn't this isn't this mentor lawyer right here? I'm not buying it either. I mean, here's the deal. I feel like we've established that she's a liar. Now, I will say this: when you're as a well, horror hose, here's the problem though, okay? When you for me, and I would imagine that at least 3 or 4 people on the jury feel the same way. If I'm sitting in the jury box and I'm listening to her testimony and she admits repeatedly that she lied, to me, then she's admitting that she is a liar. And so it makes it very difficult for me to believe anything that comes out of her mouth after that. That's the problem. That's what I think. And excuse me. And I think that she's not doing it out of the kindness of her heart. I'm sure that now she didn't go in there with anything. Okay. But I do think that she is hoping to get a sentence modification. And is that who that is? Surviving the Survivor? Is that who that is? Okay. Wow. Well, Dad, I see now. But anyway, sorry, you guys. And I cannot be distracted. I just feel like she ruined any credibility she would have with the jury. And what I find interesting is we listened to a little bit of her proffer agreement, or her proffer testimony. And one of the things that stood out to me is when one of the detectives that was speaking to her said, or might have been one of the attorneys from the state, I just remember what he said. He said, we don't need you. We have plenty. We have a stronger case against Charlie than we did against you. And so what I'm curious about is, why'd they bring her in the first place? If they don't need her testimony, I mean, it's dicey putting her up there, because she has a reason to lie. She doesn't want to, it could be many reasons. It could be that she's hoping that she gets some type of sentence modification. It could be that she is wanting to make sure that Charlie Adelson doesn't, if she's going down, they're all going down. Do you know what I mean? And there could be a ton of reasons why. I can only tell you what they said to her, which I find interesting about. I'm kind of curious if, I don't know that she actually helped either side, to be honest with you. In fact, I think the most likely scenario is that the jury is going to disregard her testimony completely, because they don't, I would disregard her testimony completely and base it off of everything else. And I think this is also a good point that No Way makes, that she was on the witness list, but I think that whenever the opening statements were made and the defense came out with, it was never a murder for hire ever. It was the fact that Charlie, it was all extortion, and that was the deal. Charlie had no idea. I'm curious. I'm curious how that was, how that's going to go. All right. So now, because we're getting into like almost an hour and 15 minutes, let's go over to Luis Rivera, his testimony. And that's not the one. Okay, this is a quickie, so we'll just watch this one. This was only 16 minutes because I want us to get to Charlie. And I'm worried that we're not, because I only planned on being live for like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. So now I'm worried we're not going to be able to get to Charlie, and we'll have to do it maybe I don't know what we're going to do. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. All right. Wait, what the frack? Okay, that's what I wanted. Hold on. Ah, it's not doing it. All right, you guys ready? There's lots of Stephanies in chat tonight. Hello, hello. I'm glad you guys are here. Did I add that to the stream? Come on. There it goes. All right, cool. Here we go.
Did y'all follow Dan Markel at all during this second trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Did y'all follow Dan Markel at all during this second trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you follow him this time?
Follow him to the daycare and to the gym.
Was there a reason that the murder had to get done on the day it did?
It was just the right thing, the right opportunity, I guess.
Okay. Did you have any information that the victim was going to be leaving town the day after the homicide occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, meeting.
Is the answer struck?
The answer is not struck. You need to rephrase your question.
All right. So how did you find out that the victim was leaving town the following day?
I can't remember that good.
Was it from a blog?
Objection, Your Honor. Meeting.
It's not leading, Your Honor.
Roll.
Was it from a blog?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what blog was that?
The blonde was Wendy.
No, I was
What you
saying
mean?
from the computer. Did you research
Oh,
it
no,
on
no,
the
no,
computer?
no.
Okay, so somebody gave you the information.
Yeah, somebody, it
A
was
person.
a person.
And how did you actually talk to the person?
No, ma'am.
Who talked to the person?
Tuto Garcia.
Garcia talked to the person.
Talked to
All
Katie.
right. Okay, so Garcia got the information from Katie.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we know where Katie got it from?
I don't know.
Okay, were you present when Garcia talked to Katie and found out we
Yes,
got to
ma'am.
do it today?
Yes, ma'am. It was on the phone.
I'm sorry.
They was on the phone speaking.
He was talking to Katie on the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were present for that.
I was in the car.
Who was driving the green Prius on, like, whenever you were following Mr. Markel right before the murder?
Me.
Did you go to, I think you said the daycare. Where else did you go that day?
The gym.
Have you seen the video surveillance from the gym in this case?
I have seen it now.
Yeah, where the green Prius is at the gym. Have you seen that?
I've seen it.
And is that you driving that Prius?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is Garcia in the vehicle as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Did you know whether or not the kids were in the car at the time you were at the gym?
Now he dropped them off. I seen him when he dropped them off in the daycare.
So you actually saw the kids go into the daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
So is it after the daycare that you proceed to the gym?
Yes.
And what about after that?
We followed him to his house.
All right, so did you wait in the car while the victim went into the gym and worked out?
Yes, ma'am.
And did y'all know at that time, like, we're gonna do it when he comes out of
No.
the gym, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, nah,
So you're just following him to see where he
to
goes.
see where he goes,
And where did he go?
to his house.
Did you see the bus video that shows the Prius shortly before and shortly after the homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you driving the vehicle at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us what happened when you got to Mr. Martell's driveway.
Well, he had turned he turned the block before. We kept going, so we went in front of his house. So when he pulled in, we pulled in right behind. I pulled in right behind him.
Is what you're describing, you entered his street from two different directions?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you met at did you meet at his driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you pull in behind him, what happens next?
Garcia jumped out and shot him
How many times?
twice.
Where was he standing when he fired the shots?
Right in front of the driver's side, right there by the driver.
Did you see what the victim did during this attack?
He put his hands up.
How was it decided that Mr. Garcia would end up being the shooter instead of the original plan, which was for you to do it?
I was driving. I ain't had no time. He jumped out and did it. He had the gun the whole time.
All right, so either one of you were willing to do it when whoever wasn't driving when the opportunity arose?
Maybe, but it was really his job. So he did it.
You mean why was it his job?
He's the one that was getting paid, but he knew about the whole thing.
Well, you were getting paid too, right?
Yeah,
But he secured the job.
yes, ma'am.
The bus video that we looked at, one of them shows the passenger side, someone in a white shirt moving around a lot right after the homicide. Can you explain to the jury what was going on in the car at that time?
He was trying to hide the gun.
And that's Garcia.
Garcia
Where did he put the gun?
ran on the front, in the passenger side, right under the rug.
Okay, what ultimately happened with the gun?
We threw it away
Where?
in the river.
On the way back to South Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where y'all went when you left Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you turn your cell phones back on?
And we turned them on right away, I think.
After leaving Tallahassee?
Yeah. If I remember, I really don't remember, but it got turned on.
Sometime after the murder, they got turned back on.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember who made the first phone call out of the two of you?
I didn't make no phone call. He did.
Who did he call?
I think he called Katie. Well, he called Katie. He
Say
called
that
Katie.
again?
He called Katie.
He called Katie. And were you able to hear that conversation with Katie?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that conversation?
He told her everything is done. She like, I know. And he like, where the money?
Okay, let me back you up just a little bit. How did she know it was done?
I think she got a phone call right away before we did.
All right, but somehow she indicated she knew.
Yes.
All right, and you asked about the money. Did you personally ask about the money, or was that Garcia?
That's Garcia.
What did she say about the money?
You'll get it tomorrow.
Did you get it tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
On the way back from Tallahassee to Miami, did you stop in Pembroke Pines at an ATM machine?
No way back.
Yeah.
I know we stopped.
I'll show you states 39 through 45. Have you seen these before?
Yeah. That's it. Seen them.
And are these appear to be ATM
Yes, ma'am.
images?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's the date on the ATM images?
7/18/2024.
2024?
I mean 14. Sorry.
All right, that's the day of the murder, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is this the green Prius that y'all came to Tallahassee in?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, are these fair and accurate photographs of you in the green Prius on the day of the homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to introduce and publish states 39 through 45.
Any objection? 39 through 45 are admitted. You may.
I feel awful for his mother. I do. I can't imagine. Bless her heart. My heart always goes out to the victim's family. Um, you know, of these cases when they have to sit in the courtroom and listen to this kind of testimony. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. My heart always goes out. Well, smile, love. Yeah, I'm covering Adelson, and then the I got some other stuff to cover too. So, but I will be going back to Tisha. All right, hold on. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and see if we can get to his cross examination. So all right, maybe we should just skip completely and go over to get started a little bit on Charlie, because he's on the stand for a very long time, and I want to talk to you guys about it. Ugh, can't spell. Let's see. All right, here we go. I'm going to put it on for us. We're going to watch Charlie now. I will say that I noticed a difference in Charlie's overall look as far as when he was sitting in trial than when he got on the stand. He wasn't as, and I know this, I don't even know why I noticed this. I just did. But the whole time I was watching him, when the camera would pan over during testimony, he looked like really pale. And when he takes the stand, he's not as pale. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how I feel about it. Hold on. Let me get us to there. It's buffering a little because it's a long piece of testimony. So we just got to be a little bit patient. I don't know. I just felt like he just looked different. And I do remember that there were reports that came out of the courtroom before the trial actually began, before testimony began, whenever they were doing jury selection, that the very first day of jury selection, that Charlie did not look well at all, that he looked really disheveled. His hair was like a mess. And yeah, I just remember them reporting that. I thought that was interesting. Here we go. All right, let's hear what Charlie has to say. I saw Donna Adelson. I don't remember seeing Harvey, but I did see Donna.
Discussion with your parents, and I think it was outside. What was your firm? And
hold on just a second.
On that morning, 11 minutes into the.
Sorry, my
Maybe
bad.
seated. Everyone may be seated.
Oh, wow, Judy, that's interesting.
Good morning, members of the jury. We are going to continue with the direct examination of Mr. Adelson. Mr. Rashbaum, when you're ready, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are you sure, Harley? I could have sworn that I saw Donna, but maybe I'm mistaken. Oh, thank you, lady. La Sandra, if you want to type them in the chat, I would appreciate that.
On call number UU, which is on May 4th, 2016, around 11 minutes into the call.
Actually, you know
it's
what?
a call with you and your mom. You ask your mom if it's okay. And she says she doesn't want to talk on the phone.
Let's actually skip just to the cross, because I think that's the important part. That's what we'll do for time constraints, because I know tomorrow's a work day for everybody.
Audio test, since Mr. Rashbaum was hooked up, Your Honor, before we get going here.
That's an excellent idea.
Wow, that's crazy, Judy. That's really good. I'll never understand the people that think that murder is a solution to situations like that, because obviously, I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't understand how that they get to. I mean, I can understand somebody having a passing thought in their mind, even more than once. Okay. But to have to go from having a passing thought to then a serious thought to then a plan, right? And then working that plan as if that's going to be some type of solution. I'll never understand that. You know, Doug, it's funny that you say that, because I'm a fan of Law and Crime Network. That's where I watch my trials, but I also love the Neapolitan, so I switch around. But for the most part, I watch Law and Crime for their trials, and of course, I have the chat on. And I remember the taller blonde. I can never remember her name. Assistant prosecutor or second chair, however you want to say it. But anyway, I remember when she and Adelson's attorney were talking, and there was such chatter in the chat about it.
Is it doctor?
It is, yes.
All right, doctor. Have you ever heard the saying that the simplest explanation is always the most likely?
Occam's razor.
Theory before, yeah.
Was your explanation to the jury over the last little over a day the simplest explanation?
It was the truth.
You have a thorough explanation. Would you agree with that?
I told you what happened.
Do you agree that the only problem with having an explanation for everything is that there's just so many explanations?
There's no explanation. I explained what happened.
I want to go through some of that. You claim that you were extorted on July 18th, 2014 by Katherine Magbanua, and also in the background, some Latin kings, probably Garcia and Rivera, right? Is that accurate?
No, I wasn't extorted by Katherine Magbanua.
You weren't?
That's not what I believed in 2014.
Okay, I'm sorry. I understood you to say you believe that today.
Today I do, yes.
All right. So who extorted you?
I believe that it was Katherine Magbanua's friend that she ran her mouth to.
Okay.
And
And
that's
at the
2014.
right. But as you sit here today, you think it's Magbanua, Garcia, and Rivera. Is that accurate?
No, that's not accurate.
Okay. Who extorted you?
As I sit here today, I believe that it was Katherine Magbanua, and I believe Sigfredo Garcia, but I don't know for sure. I was never there when she was ever talking to him, so I don't know if he was in on it with her or not.
All right. At the time, though, you did not think she was guilty. You got that right. The time of the
In
extortion.
2014?
Yes.
Correct.
And then so exactly when you found out would be, I think you said, her trial.
That I suspected that she was not telling me the truth and she was a part of it was in 2019.
At her trial.
Yes.
All right. And so she was arrested in 2016, right?
Yes.
All right. So for 3 years, she was in the Leon County Jail awaiting trial. Yes.
She was there.
And you believed she was innocent.
Yes.
And you had this whole explanation to assist with exonerating her, right?
I have the truth of what happened. Yes.
But you didn't offer the truth of what happened, did you?
Nobody came to me. I thought the truth would come out.
Does someone have to come to you?
I was told not to talk to Katie and not to talk to anybody about this case by counsel.
Okay.
Okay, this is going to be problematic for the jury. And I'll tell you why. Because it's going to be very difficult for the jury. And I don't know any details about the jury. Like, for example, how many men, how many women. Sometimes I know those details, and like I know that that there's somewhere somebody said something about it. Sometimes I pay attention and sometimes I don't, because sometimes if I pay too close of attention, then it kind of skews my own thinking. So I like to just sort of not know. But anyway, that's not even the point. But I think this part is going to be problematic for Charlie, because I think that the average person would understand keeping your mouth shut while the extortion is going on. All right. But afterwards, when Katie Magbanua is arrested, when Sigfredo Garcia is arrested, when Luis Rivera is arrested, you don't say anything. You know, that's going to be very difficult for the jury to overcome, because it doesn't make sense. Now, there's the other side of me that is always that I keep in the back of my head all of the time. When they read you your Miranda rights, the first thing they read you is that you have the right to remain silent. And then they follow that up with, if you anything you say can and will be used against you. But if you're being extorted, wouldn't it be, I just feel like, wouldn't it be better if you don't go alone, but you have counsel? So why not reach out to law enforcement and have your lawyer there? Do you know what I mean? I think that's where this defense is going to be super, super difficult for the jury. I don't buy it at all, but I think it's going to be even more difficult for the jury. I don't think the jury is going to buy it.
So you strike that. On day one, which is July 18th, 2014, she is the only one that physically contacted you to conduct this extortion. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are.
So you never actually had any contact with any Latin King?
No.
No phone calls?
No phone calls.
No texts?
No.
No letters?
Well, in 2016, you're talking about in 14, right?
I'm talking about the first layer of the extortion. Did you have any contact with the thugs that were getting your money for 2 years?
No.
Did anybody put a gun to your head?
I was told that I would be killed in 48 hours if I didn't pay up.
I heard you say that, but my question is, did anyone put a gun to your head?
You're asking me, did anyone pull a gun on me?
That's what
Is
I
that your
asked you.
question? No,
Yeah.
nobody pulled a firearm on me.
All right, so when Katherine Magbanua came to you on July 18th and said, open the safe and give me all your money, she was not armed.
She was not carrying a gun that day,
And
no.
were you armed at that time? Did you have a weapon in your home?
I had weapons in my safe, yes.
Were you led to believe or told that the bad guys are outside, right outside your apartment or your residence?
No, but I was led to believe what they did to Dan, they were going to do to me.
I heard you say that, but my question is, did she say like the car is running, I'm going to take the money out there to him right now?
No, she never told me that they were waiting for me outside my house.
In fact, she stayed the night with you, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And didn't exit your house with your $138,000 until the next day, right?
Correct.
Okay. I know that not everybody was a fan of this cross, and there's parts of it that I'm not a fan of, but I do think she makes a good point right here. Basically, what she's getting across to the jury is, did you really think there was an impending threat? Which is a good point. Did you?
The money, the $138,000, was that stapled into $1,000 increments?
Each packet was $1,000, and had a staple in it.
And stapling money is a little unusual. Would you agree with that?
For me, it wasn't unusual. That's what I did.
Right, but nobody else does it. That's why I'm suggesting it's unusual.
I've never questioned people into how they keep their money, whether they keep it with a staple or a paper clip or an envelope. I just know what I do.
Would you agree, doctor, that it's a compelling piece of evidence that the killers were paid in stapled money and came up with that information in this case?
It's not compelling. The people who extorted me and got my money got it from my house, and it was stapled at my house.
They had to have gotten it from you, right? Because it was stapled.
If they got it from Katie, they got it from me.
So it had to be some kind of, I paid, but I did it under duress, based on that piece of evidence, right? That had to be built into your defense.
I was extorted, and I paid the money.
All right. So Katie comes in and she's in a panic and she tells you what's happened. And I need all the money in your safe right now. Do you suspect that maybe she's working with the police at that point? Maybe she's trying to set you up?
No, she didn't say I need all the money in your safe. That's not what she said.
Did she take all the money in your safe?
I cleaned out all the money in my safe and handed it to her.
Right. Why did you do that?
Because I was being extorted for $250,000.
But why didn't you? The bump was only $5,000, and you immediately became suspicious and questioning and had all these conversations and deliberations about what to do about it for days. When Katie comes to you, you just open the safe and give her the money, right?
That's what I did. And there's a big difference between the two.
Okay, well, the way that it was done to you, is that the way it's done?
You have to be more specific. Please.
Well, on the wire, you say repeatedly, that's not the way it's done. You knew that the undercover agent was law enforcement, or at least strongly suspected, because that's not the way it's done. And my question to you is, since you're an expert on extortion, because you've been extorted before, and that's how you knew that's not the way it's done, is this the way it's done? Do extortionists send a girlfriend of their victim to collect their extortion money? Is that the way it's done, doctor?
I'm telling you what happened to me. And I was told that if I didn't pay in 48 hours, I would be killed. The person that came and extorted my mom, that was not the same approach as what happened to me.
Is that the only way? That's the only way it's done? They send the girlfriend?
It's the only time I've ever been extorted like that.
Okay. And did you hear any of the negotiate? So they come in and they say, strike. They come in and they say, we need $333,000.
You need to pay $333,000.
You need to pay $333,000.
Okay. Now, I will say this part. I've never heard of an extortion where the amount of money that they're extorting from you isn't explicit. I've never heard anybody say, I'm going to extort you for $250,000, right? They extort you for what is that? 250,000, right? They don't ask, you see what I'm saying? Like the amount of money is very specific, is what I'm trying to say. Not a third, not a quarter, they actually tell you the exact amount. This is where it's quite preposterous, Mr. Adelson, but please continue.
$1 million. Why not $1 million?
Because when I had told to Katie that the $1 million offer for Dan Markel, I said I was going to pay $350,000. And when she asked me,
No, Hive.
You have that much money? And I said, yeah, I could pay it in cash. So she took it as I had cash, and she knew I had a ton of cash in my safe. So she thought I had the cash. I didn't have all that cash. So that's where I'm assuming they got the $350,000 from.
But the offer, $1 million offer, isn't that right? That she ran her mouth about.
I was never there when she spoke to her friend.
Okay, was it $1 million offer?
The offer was that $1 million was going to be paid, and I was going to pay $350,000.
And weren't you going to cover Wendy's third as well?
No, not at all. I was going
to. Okay. No, Mel, the jury is not sequestered. They get to go home. Well, I know how they came up with, okay, but this is my point. What is 1/3 of $1 million? $330,000, right? Wouldn't they ask for $330,000, not 1/3 of $1 million? Do you see what I'm saying? It's the language, not the amount. I know where the amount came from, but it's the language they used. Do you see that? In order for his story to be believed, right? I can't see Katherine Magbanua using that language. Hey, Aries girl. I don't see Sigfredo Garcia using that. I think he would say $330,000 or $300,000, whatever it was. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like they would use the specific amount, not use $250,000, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to argue. That's why this doesn't, or not argue, but you know what I'm saying? That's why this whole, there's one of the reasons why this whole scheme makes no sense on his end. This is not a very good story, but to be fair, he had to come up with something, because I got to tell you, I don't know anybody, I've never met anybody that staples money. Rubber bands, yes. Paper clips, sure. Bands from the bank, absolutely, but not staples. That should be a charge in itself. Are you even allowed to staple money? That doesn't seem legal.
to cover my third.
Didn't your lawyer say in opening statement that you were going to cover the whole thing, or Wendy's third?
No, I was sitting here. I heard what he said. Charlie was going to pay $350,000.
All right. And so the offer was $1 million offer, and that's what you told Katie, along with the fact that you were going to cover the third.
I was telling her that I was going to pay $350,000, yeah. And then one day, if my sister was able to, she was going to pay me back.
And then you.
Okay, so I know that this is how the story goes. So okay, the $1 million was supposed to be a payment to Dan, so that Dan would acquiesce and let Wendi move to Miami, South Beach, with the boys. Okay. And that the Adelson family was going to pay it. Wendi didn't have money to pay it. So it was going to be between him and his parents. Right. And that is a story. What he's saying is that's a story that he relayed to Katherine Magbanua, which is how, but the point, the prosecutor makes a very good point. If they had $1 million between the three of them, why didn't they extort him for the full $1 million? I don't think Tony Montana used any staples. No, I do not. I'm Tony Montana.
You didn't have the amount of money that was being demanded at the time, right?
No, I only had what I had.
All right. And at that point, the blackmailer, Katherine Magbanua, negotiates some type of layaway plan for you to complete the extortion with the Latin Kings.
Okay.
I want to answer Ariel. Okay, so Ariel, here's the significance of the staples. The money. When after Dan Markel was murdered, Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera were paid by Charlie Adelson. And the way that they are going to, it's a detail that proves the money came from his safe, because it's an odd thing to do. Most people do not staple their money. So there's no getting around that odd detail for the defense. So they have to come up with a reasonable explanation why they would have his money. Because according to Charlie, the middle person in the extortion plot was Katie Magbanua. Now, he's at the time in 2014, he claims that he didn't think that she was involved, i.e. profiting in any way. She wasn't getting a cut of any of the money from the extortion, but she was the person who came to Dan and told him he was being extorted, told him that he had 48 hours to pay the money. And she is the one whom he gave other money to after the stapled money. So after the cash payment, then Katie Magbanua got checks and cash from him. And so he cannot deny that the money came from him. This is his way of explaining how Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera would have gotten money that would have only come from his safe, because he wasn't robbed. He's saying he gave it to them because he was being extorted. And also, I don't know very many, I don't know about this payment plan either.
Katie wasn't the blackmailer, and Katie wasn't the one who was extorting me.
Didn't you just tell this jury that Katie was the blackmailer? You realized it in 2019.
I had thought that when you were just talking, you were talking about 2014. You were talking about that night.
Okay.
So that's night happened in
Doctor.
2014.
Okay.
She's frustrated.
We all know now, because you have revealed the puzzle piece. She's a blackmailer. Can we agree on that?
I believe, sitting here in 2023,
Yes.
that she was in on the extortion for sure.
Yes. So is it okay if I refer to her as a blackmailer?
I think there's a difference between blackmail and extortion, but yeah,
Okay.
It's sitting here today, we can.
I don't think there's a difference.
Refer to her as an extortionist. So this woman, the extortionist, is going to do you a solid by negotiating with the Latin Kings for you to get on a payment plan for the extortion.
A
Isn't that what
layaway.
happened?
What you're doing is you're taking what we know in 2003 and trying to say, this is what I knew in 2014.
Did she put you on a payment plan?
Yes, she said, because I didn't have the money, she said, asked me if I could pay $3,000 a month in 2014. And I said, yes, I can.
See, this is where this is going to be problematic. Mel, it certainly doesn't sound legal to me. I do not think that you can, this is where it's confusing for me with the IRS, okay? Because Florida has no state tax, all right? I live here, I know. So they would be the Adelson Institute, which is who the checks came from, right? The account that the checks were written from, excuse me. If they have her on payroll as an actual employee, how are they giving her a 1099 at the end of the year? What's happening with this? Some of this stuff does not make sense. Like none of this sounds like a good idea to me. Also, okay, the whole theory from Charlie's defense is how this extortion even came to be is because Charlie said to Katie, me and my family made Dan, we're going to make Dan $1 million offer and I'm going to pay a third of it. Okay. Now, that makes sense with those parameters, right? If you are going to go to somebody and you're going to offer them a cash settlement, right? And you know that they might work with you if you don't have your full third, right? But that's not hiring somebody to do something for you. That's not how criminals work. These are extortionists, according to Charlie. So anyway, Katie goes to her friend and relays the story. And then the friend comes up with this idea to extort Charlie Adelson. But Charlie Adelson doesn't actually have a third of $1 million. So instead they put him, Katie negotiates with the extortionists and they put Charlie on a payment plan. And she is the middleman for the payment plan. Charlie never directly handed any money to Sigfredo Garcia or to Luis Rivera, but at no time between 2014 and 2019, when Katie Magbanua was arrested and charged in the conspiracy and in the murder of Dan Markel, at no point in those 5 years did Charlie Adelson consider her to be part of in cahoots with the extortionists. Do you see how that makes no sense? Exactly, Kathy. I have a structured settlement, but I need cash now. Call 1-877-CASH now. Remember that? Yep. Call 877-CASH now. Call 877-CASH now. That's why this makes no sense. And I don't think that the jury is going to buy this at all. Because I don't.
You hear any of the conversation where she was making these negotiations on your behalf?
No, when she said, I'm going to go check with my friend and if that's okay with him, she took her purse, took her keys, took her cell phone. She walked out of my front door, closed the door behind her, and I sat in my living room and she came back about 5 minutes later.
You didn't want to talk to the guy yourself?
No, I didn't even think of that. But she went outside to call him.
All right. And then the two of you took a Xanax and went to sleep.
Well, I took a Xanax. I don't know if she took one out of the bottle, but I definitely did.
Okay. Now, this part of the story I just have to comment on because it's very clear why he's doing this. He is a doctor of dentistry, okay, and can write prescriptions, okay? The last thing that you want to do with the type of licensure that he holds is admit to giving another person your prescription, particularly one of them that's what's Xanax, like a Schedule 1 or a Schedule 2, right? He's going to admit to being extorted. He's going to admit to paying the extortionists, but he draws the line at admitting that he handed Katie a Xanax. It's just an interesting detail that he is careful not to admit to for obvious reasons, because it's illegal to do it.
And the next morning she left with your money, right?
She left about 8:30 the next morning.
That's July 19th, 2014.
Correct.
Let's talk about what you did that day. You did not report this to the police because you were in fear, correct?
Absolutely.
And you didn't report this to Wendi, even though, according to you, her life was in danger too, correct?
Potentially, but I planned on paying the extortion every month.
All right. But you did go to the gym that morning, right? Can we show that text, please? Were you able to go to the gym the next
I
morning?
absolutely didn't leave the house. I worked it out at Nova Southeastern Gym. You can check the gym records. I was never there.
Okay. Did you say you were going to the gym?
I said I was, yeah.
But you didn't actually go?
No, I didn't leave the house.
All right. So would you agree, Doctor, and we'll refresh your memory with them if we can, that
Really, Kai
the text
Ocean.
messages that were exchanged between yourself and Katherine Magbanua on the
Hold the phone. Wait a minute. Back the milk truck up. I can't highlight this because YouTube rules, but that is crazy. Oh, I'm going to have to go over there and listen to that. Thank you, Kai, for coming in here and telling me that. That is wow. I could have sworn on direct. You know what? I think he might have on direct. Ooh. Yikes on bikes. All right, here we go.
the morning after this exchange of money were inconsistent with your extortion theory.
They were inconsistent with how I was feeling.
They don't appear to look like you just gave her $138,000 under duress, do they?
She told me the last thing she said to me before she left the house is, can we just pretend like this never even happened? So when I sent her that message, I was trying to show her, like, I'm trying to forget all about it.
Yeah, you were just demonstrating to her that you would agree to pretend nothing happened, right?
Absolutely. That's what she asked me to do, and that's what I tried to do.
All right. So the text messages aren't what they appear to be. It's a beautiful.
Back the milk truck up. He was also on. Oh my gosh, you guys. Now I'm going to have to go over there. I'm going to be up late tonight. Oh, there was a stipulation. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay.
Day. I'm going to the pool. I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the gym. None of that is what it appears to be. It's something else.
I absolutely did not go to the gym. I was trying to show her that I was, pretending like nothing ever happened and looking past it.
And there's nothing on the wire. All those hours of you talking, there is nothing on the wire about the extortion, this layer 1 of extortion, because she told you not to talk about it, right?
She told me to never talk about anything to anyone or her. She never wanted to hear about it again.
Yesterday, in your testimony, between you and your attorney, you mentioned the word extortion 123 times. Would you take my word for that?
I'm sure it came up a lot.
Okay. But nowhere, even in the midst of this whole second extortion, it's happening again. It's an extension of the same thing. Do you mention anything about this layer 1 of the extortion? Do you?
Yes, actually, I did.
Okay.
If you pull up the video from Matsuri when I was sitting with my dad, and I said, and the funny thing is, that's what I whispered in his ear.
Right, but we can't hear that.
Right, because that's my point. I never wanted anybody to hear what had happened. I never wanted the police to come talk to me. But if you put up that video, you'll actually see me saying that it's my dad's ear, and that's why I went in and said it. And that's what we were talking about at the time. So
At Matsuri, the only time you mention the extortion, it's in a whisper that is not picked up by the microphones, right?
Intentionally, yes.
Yes. And that was intentional at the time, but it sucks for your defense, right? Because that would be a huge piece of evidence for you to show this jury, wouldn't it?
No, I think you'd come up with a reason why that I said it anyway.
And there's nobody to corroborate this testimony?
There is.
Okay. And
Will you be calling this person to corroborate this story?
Matsuri.
That was rhetorical. The defense is rested.
You talked about it again out in the parking lot, right? Wasn't that your testimony?
Yes, we spoke in the parking lot.
Okay. So you did talk about the extortion.
That's
Just didn't do it in a way that it was captured on any of the recordings in this case.
well, we spoke when we had privacy.
Well, you had privacy on the phone, right?
But when?
At least you thought you had privacy on the phone. Every time when you were talking on the phone for
No,
hundreds of hours on the
no.
wire.
There's always a chance that I was being listened to.
Okay.
I mean,
well, there was a chance you were being listened to when you whispered in Dad's ear, right? But you said it. And you were talking
Well,
about
I
it.
whispered real quietly into his ear, so I thought I had privacy. At that point, I thought I had privacy.
And Katherine Magbanua and you discussed this first layer of extortion in the car outside of Dolce Vita too, right?
That's when I found out everything that was going on, and she opened up when I
But
confronted
if
her.
this jury could hear that conversation recorded, we would all be hearing basically what you're telling us, that there was an extortion effort that
This is an excellent point. Prior bad acts can't come in, makes sense that they kept it out. This is true. However, we learned from the Murdoch trial that there are ways that it can accidentally come in. Ain't that right, Jim Griffin?
predated the undercover operation. Wouldn't
Right.
we?
Because I was trying to see if Sigfredo was behind the extortion of my mom, because I knew he was behind. Always had a feeling he was behind what happened to me, and she was having this explosive fight with him, and it was going on the same exact time that my mom started getting extorted. So I thought that he was going after my mom.
Don't you wish that that conversation in the car had been recorded?
I don't know.
Wouldn't it prove your theory
Yeah. I
that
mean,
you're talking about, the
if I
prior
think about it.
extortion?
then you know exactly what happened back then.
But unfortunately, it wasn't recorded. And then everything that was recorded inside the restaurant, you don't mention it, right?
I'm speaking very carefully. I mean, I was still, even when I was in the car with Katie, she was doing most of the talking. That was the first time she really opened up, and I think I caught her off guard. I was still, even when I spoke to her in the car, I was real careful. I said, was T behind what happened to me? Like, I wouldn't even say the words to her when I was in the car.
Okay. Was T behind what happened to me? Do you say anything anywhere on the wire about referencing what happened to me? Meaning what happened to me before?
No, because that was the only time I ever confronted her. But I did actually when I would be on the wire with my mom, and I would say, it's not the same person. Like, that was in reference to what happened to me, and she
What
knew
call
that.
do you say it's not the same person?
Okay, you want to know what call?
Yeah,
It
she
was
asked.
Tuesday, the 26th. And I said, it's at the end of the call. It was a 2-minute and something call.
April 26th?
April 26, 2016. It was a 2-minute and something call. It was towards the very end. And I go, I know it's not done like this. It's 48 hours, just enough time. It's not the same person. So you can look it up.
Okay, I'm with you. It's not the same person you were referencing as the person that blackmailed me years ago and has been blackmailing me for years.
Yeah,
That's what you meant.
It's not the same person that's extorting me, correct?
All right. So I want to go back to Wendi. Wendi is in the process of relocating from Tallahassee to South Florida, basically the day that this is going on, day after the money drop. Right?
They're packing up the car. They're coming back. Yeah.
Right. So she's going to be moving significantly closer to the killers that had threatened her life.
This what I don't she wasn't planning it wasn't a permanent move or anything that was planned. I think she took a suitcase with her.
But she's your family member, yes. She's much closer to the one they've already killed than you, right?
Say it again.
She's much closer. She's got much deeper connections to the person they've already killed. That's Dan Markel than you do.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason to fear for her safety because these killers have come, they've just killed Dan, and now they're saying they're going to kill another one. It could be Wendi, right?
She has no idea what's going on.
Exactly. But you let her move from Tallahassee to Miami where you knew the killers were located. That's my point. Do you agree with that?
The killers were able to find Dan Markel in Tallahassee. They have a car.
They were, but would you rather live in Tallahassee or in Miami if the killers are in Miami?
I think if these people want to find you, they'll find you.
Yeah, but that's not the point, Charlie. And this is actually a good point that she's making. What if you're being extorted, would you send any member of your family to live it? Wouldn't you try to stop your family member from being in close proximity to where basically what Charlie is saying, okay, is that this is his theory. This is his, not theory. This is his defense. He's saying that Sigfredo and Luis killed Dan Markel for no other reason than to extort him because Katie Magbanua ran her mouth to a friend about, which I think is Sigfredo. That's who they're calling the friend. Because Katie ran her mouth to Sigfredo about, as Letitia says, that Charlie Adelson was breaded up. So their plan to extort him, they just completely, so why would you, and her point is, all right, if everything you say is true, and these people would come and kill somebody in an effort to extort you, why would you let your sister move closer in proximity to people who would be willing to kill an innocent person that has never done anything to them? They don't know him from Adam's house cat, right? But their sole purpose of murdering Dan Markel was to extort you. And how did they know that you would be willing to be extorted? How do they know that you wouldn't go to the cops? That's what the issue is. That's what the problem is. And that's the hole in his defense. So many things were on the part of the extortionists played right, like the fates all aligned, right? If they had just killed Dan Markel, right, and they came to Charlie with this extortion, how did they know that he wouldn't call the cops? If he'd have called the cops, they would have protected him. They would have protected Wendi, the boys, Donna, Harvey, right? The cops would have, and they would have investigated it. Instead, he thinks that, you think that a murderer is going to keep his or her word? That's the part that's why this doesn't make any logical sense. So anyway, all right, you guys, I've been on here for over 2 hours and I'm tired of me, and I'm sure you guys are tired of me. And exactly, Aries. He never calls the cops about this murder and then the extortion after the fact. But yet he does contact the police for other incidences. So none of it makes any sense. Closing arguments are tomorrow. I will be live tomorrow night. And we are going to listen to the closing arguments. No skipping around. None of that. Right. That's another thing. This is another big hole. Why Dan? He wasn't you know, why would they choose him of all people? It just, none of it makes any sense. Anyway, Chaplain, listen, I'm not, I don't know if you're including me in that because I don't feel like that's me, but I'll say this. In my opinion, when I talk about a case, right, or a trial, okay, every defendant has the constitutional right to be presumed innocent, okay? But when you are watching a trial as it happens and you're talking about the trial, it's very that's always in my mind, that he has the presumption of innocence. So when I'm discussing a trial, I will discuss it as if I'm sitting on that jury and I'm hearing this testimony and how I weigh the jury, or excuse me, how I weigh the evidence. At the end of the day, nothing that I say makes a bit of difference. It's not going to change anything one way or another, because at the end of the day, the jury is the one that's going to find out whether whether Charlie is guilty or not guilty of, being part of the murder of Dan Markell. Nothing I say over here is going to do anything to that effect. But yeah, I feel like, I'm just discussing my opinion on the evidence as it was presented. And at the end of the day, the jury is the one that's going to figure that out. That's going to make that determination, and it will only matter what their opinion is. So, and then as far as the ultimate judge, that's, well, everybody believes something different, but yeah. So hopefully, yeah, I mean, yeah, I do think that there is a compelling argument to be made about how fair can certain really high publicity trials ever be, because it's easy to taint a potential jury pool. But I think that I'm always surprised about how, like, certain cases that are super, super well known, right? But I will ask people in my, like, real life that don't, that aren't on the internet following true crime or don't belong to YouTube or anything like that. They'll ask me what case I'm covering or whatever, and I will tell them. And I'm always amazed at how they're not familiar with these cases. So it always really makes me wonder, how tainted is the jury pool potentially? Just because it's a high profile case. And I think because we are following it, we are paying attention and looking for the coverage. Whereas if we were not following true crime or not interested in a particular case, we might hear something about it being talked. We might hear something being talked about respective to the case, like on the news, right? And we would listen to it when it's being spoken about, but we wouldn't really retain the information. It wouldn't be something that, if we're not interested in it, if you're not interested in something, you just don't pay attention. So I feel like I'm really curious about that. And I'm also curious about, could there be a potential where we in our justice system, with the internet now and like 24/7 news channels and, just all the things, would a system of professional jurors be a good idea? People whose job it is to sit on a jury. I don't know. Those are all like things that I think of. Exactly, Blue. I think because we're following a specific case or a specific trial, that and we know every detail, and we know that the Adelsons did make, I mean, they were nationally covered. Dateline did an episode on them too. Nancy Grace talked about them, you know, but it's one of those things. I don't know. I mean, I would be, yeah, here's the thing. There's only so much that a voir dire with juries can accomplish. Okay. You're trying to get, certain people on a jury versus, you know, that you think will listen to the evidence and vote in favor of your client, right? As a defense attorney. Likewise, with the state, you're wanting to get certain people who get on the jury who will vote your way, right? And find the defendant guilty. But there's in that questioning, there are some questions that I suppose that could be asked and answered that would seem innocuous and routine that might give it some type of insight into potentially a person's like narcissist behavior. You know, we're all narcissists to a certain extent, but you know, psychopaths or sociopaths, you know, but I don't know that, I don't know that they're allowed to ask the type of questions that would actually be beneficial in ascertaining whether somebody is a sociopath, a psychopath, or a narcissist. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if we can ever, you know, it's our system's messed up. All right. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for tonight, you guys. I'm going to watch the closing arguments tomorrow morning. Hopefully you guys will be too. And then we'll come back tomorrow night to discuss it. Sound like a plan? All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a great rest of your night and a good day tomorrow. And I'll see you later.